I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Welcome to the Work From Home edition of our Path of Exile announcement livestream. Thanks for joining us as we discuss all the details of the upcoming Path of Exile Scourge expansion, which releases on October 22nd for PC and October 27th on console. For today's livestream, Twitch drops are enabled. Check out the link below the stream for more information on how to claim your free Dragonfly wings. First up, we'll showcase the trailer for Path of Exile Scourge. Then we'll take a deep dive through all the details of its challenge league and rewards. After that, we'll talk about the improvements we're making to Path of Exile's endgame and the various types of new aspirational content we're adding for you to benchmark your best characters against. Next up, we'll talk about some big improvements to the passive skill tree and we'll reveal this expansion's new skills. After discussing some balance changes and the new guild quality of life features, we'll head into a live Q&A stream where I chat with community streamer Ziggy D. Oh, and after the Q&A, we'll post the entire expansion's patch notes. I'm proud to present the official trailer for Path of Exile Scourge.
The day the demons found our world, the innocent were first to die. They approach your world, your raid class. You must take the fight to them. Embrace the power of chaos. Become more than mortal. Face the nightmare. They are ravenous. They are endless. They are the Scourge.
The Path of Exile Scourge expansion contains a lot of new content and features that we'll reveal to you today. Let's start with its namesake, the Scourge Challenge League. Upon leaving Lion Eye's watch, you're startled by a figure appearing out of nowhere, trying to escape from something you can't see. She hands you a rusty-looking device called the Blood Crucible and urges you to implant it into your body. As you play through each area in the Scourge Challenge League, the Blood Crucible fills with the blood spilled by monsters you have slain. Once it reaches a certain threshold, you're able to activate the device. This will instantly thrust you into a parallel reality, an alternate Rayclast where some form of apocalyptic event is occurring. This Rayclast is overrun by demons known as the Scourge. They're powerful, dangerous, and come in many forms. The more blood you have collected, the longer you can stay shifted into the parallel Rayclast. But the longer you stay, the more damage you'll take. When the Crucible's blood runs out or you choose to shift back, you are instantly returned to your original location in our Rayclast to continue your journey. So why enter an alternate reality to fight a horde of ravenous demons? The answer to that question is exactly what you expect from Path of Exile. You're not there to save the world, you're there to find cool items. You can put an item inside the Blood Crucible. While you are killing the Scourge, it absorbs corruption from the alternate Rayclast and focuses it onto the item. After enough kills, your item is ready to transform. When it does, it becomes corrupted and gains a pair of Scourged modifiers. One of these is a beneficial mod and one is a detrimental mod. These Scourged mods are in addition to the regular explicit and implicit mods or enchantments on the item. There are many powerful beneficial mods available that can really improve your item. The detrimental mods can significantly raise the requirements of the item, penalize your character's stats such as resistances, or outright turn off various mechanics like the ability to deal fire damage or gain charges. The goal of the transformation process is to get a beneficial mod that makes your item a lot more powerful, while also rolling a detrimental mod that doesn't hurt your build much or at all. But if you get a combination you're unhappy with, then your item is not ruined. By putting it back in the Blood Crucible, killing even more monsters in the alternate Rayclust, you can transform it a second time, potentially getting a better pair of mods that overwrite the first. Equipment can be transformed up to 3 times, and each time it guarantees a minimum tier of beneficial and detrimental mods equal to the number of times it has been transformed. By the 3rd tier, you can start to get some very powerful effects. The Blood Crucible works on already corrupted items, so it's possible to add Scourged mods to items that you thought couldn't be improved any further. Talking about corrupted items, you're going to need a way to modify their sockets. While in the alternate Rayclust, you can find Tainted Chromatic Orbs, Tainted Jeweler's Orbs, and Tainted Orbs of Fusing, which work exactly the same as their regular counterparts but can only be used on corrupted items. Tainted Orbs provide a significantly easier and cheaper way of modifying the sockets on your corrupted items than the crafting bench does. While it's obvious that Scourged items can be among Path of Exile's most powerful endgame equipment, it's worth considering the huge impact that good Scourge modifiers can have on your run through the campaign. In our testing, we often manage to Scourge items that are far more powerful than leveling uniques. As you slay the Scourge and other monsters while shifted, the Blood Crucible gains experience and can level up. You can allocate its skill points in its own passive skill screen, which allows it to specialize in many aspects such as unlocking additional item slots, faster item transformation, better transformation outcomes, the ability to transform unique items, and so on. It's possible to eventually allocate every single one of the Blood Crucible skills, but it requires a lot of demon slaying. Scourge's endgame is one where you control the level of risk and reward, or as we like to say in the business, it has a lot of player agency. Once you're exploring the Atlas of Worlds, you may gain the ability to place maps in the Blood Crucible alongside your equipment. When a map absorbs enough corruption and transforms, it gains a beneficial and detrimental effect in the same way that a piece of equipment does, but can also gain a modifier that changes the behavior of Scourge League in that map entirely. After all, when you combine 2 types of alternate realities together, the results are bound to be unpredictable. Maps can be transformed up to 10 times, increasing their risk and reward substantially each time. When a map is transformed a second or subsequent time, there's a chance that the new beneficial or detrimental modifiers stack alongside the existing ones, enhancing their power, or a chance that new modifiers are added. Be careful not to transform your maps too many times, of course, as they may become too dangerous to complete. Path of Exile Scourge introduces 6 new unique items, of which 3 have been added to the core drop pool and 3 can be found in specific aspirational content that we'll reveal later in the livestream. Ulnatol's Vow is an amulet that effectively enables you to turn any 6-linked body armor into a 7-link. Support gems you socket into this amulet apply to skills in your body armor. While specific mods on items have allowed players to create 7-link skills in the past, this amulet lets you choose whatever support gem you want, including corrupted or awakened ones. It's only possible to find this unique item in specific content that we'll reveal later in the livestream. The new Mageblood belt is one of the most powerful unique items to ever exist in Path of Exile. It permanently enables a number of your utility flasks, providing their benefits constantly with no work required on your part. This belt means that regardless of what your build is, you'll sustain your utility flasks during 100% of gameplay, even long boss fights. Mageblood is in the core drop pool and is exceptionally rare. Early next year, we will release a huge overhaul of Path of Exile's Atlas of Worlds endgame in the 3.17 expansion. In the meantime though, our October Scourge expansion introduces a bunch of changes that speed up how quickly you can set up and progress through your Atlas. We're also introducing more types of ultra-challenging endgame content for top players who want to put their best characters to the test. In order to substantially shorten the length of the Atlas grind, we have reduced the number of regions from 8 to 4. This implicitly reduces the number of watchstones required from 32 to 16. We have also reduced the number of maps on the Atlas, so it's now approximately 100 plus the unique maps. We've rebalanced the bonuses for completing content so that by the time your Atlas is fully unlocked, you'll receive a slightly higher level of benefit than you did before. Because the number of regions has been halved, so have the number of Atlas passive trees. There are now 4 plus the Uncharted realms. We've made each tree slightly larger and removed some less frequently used or duplicated skills. You'll still be awarded the same number of Atlas passive skill points as before. With these changes, each map you play constitutes far more progress than it previously did. About half as much work is now required to reach Path of Exile's ultimate endgame. We've made some other changes to streamline the endgame also. For example, now when you unveil a modifier, all tiers of that modifier are immediately unlocked at the crafting bench. This applies to every veiled modifier, including the very rare ones. Many of Path of Exile's past leagues have an endgame component that is designed to challenge the best players with the best builds. Over time, more and more of Path of Exile's experienced players have managed to defeat the game's hardest content. Our most difficult endgame content doesn't pose as much of a challenge as it once did. In the Scourge expansion, we have added a set of new aspirational content, uber versions of Breach, Blight, Legion, an extension to Delirium's Simulacrum, and a revamp of Delve. Breach's endgame involves running Breachstones, which can be placed in the map device to open portals to a Breachlord's domain. For each Breachlord, there are currently 4 tiers of Breachstones, and you can upgrade between them using blessings. Path of Exile Scourge introduces a new tier, Flawless Breachstones. These can't be obtained via blessings, but are instead found in the Maven encounters where you fight the Breachlords in their most challenging forms. These Flawless Breachstones require a substantially more powerful character to complete, but have rewards appropriate for their difficulty. Existing Breachstones now have 2 random modifiers, from a pool that doesn't include build disabling ones, such as not being able to leech, and the new Flawless Breachstones have 4 of these modifiers, which represents a significant jump in difficulty. They can drop special versions of the Grasping Male body armor, which has a specific fractured modifier themed around the Breachlord of that domain. The Ulnatol's Vow unique amulet we revealed earlier can only be obtained through Flawless Breachstones. All Breachstones have been modified so that the items you earn from monsters are now dropped in a spiral at your feet when you complete or fail the event. In addition, rare monsters and Breach domains drop an additional random reward types such as Scarabs, Maps, or Divination cards, with Flawless Breachstones adding 2 additional reward types. All Breachstones are far more rewarding than before. Blighted maps were previously our pinnacle Blight content and could be anointed up to 3 times to increase their difficulty and rewards. In the Scourge expansion, while you're playing Blighted maps, you may find a Blight Ravaged map. These have increased monster difficulty and are always monster level 85. They can be anointed up to 9 times with up to 3 of any one type of anointment. These incredibly challenging encounters can also yield one of Scourge's powerful new unique items. In Legion, you can combine up to 5 timeless emblems to enter the domain of timeless conflict. While playing the domain in this expansion, you can find unrelenting emblems, which can be mixed and matched with timeless emblems for a substantially more challenging and rewarding encounter. Delirium's Simulacrum encounter has been extended, with 10 additional waves of combat. As you can expect, these extremely difficult extra waves are very rewarding and feature escalating chances for a Delirium boss to spawn. With each wave you play, the Simulacrum now has increasing chances of dropping Cluster Jewels and past wave 20 Delirium unique items. Previously, you could only get a maximum of 1 Delirium unique item per Simulacrum, but now you can walk out with multiple high-value items such as Voices. Simulacrums not only represent a lot more value now, but also an opportunity to truly test your character against some of Path of Exile's hardest content. In addition, Delirium orbs are now a lot more common, and Delirium's rewards have been improved, due to less popular ones like Prophecy and Talisman being removed entirely. We've made quite a few changes to Delve in the Scourge expansion. The first change is that we have completely rebalanced the entire thing so it's just more rewarding and more challenging at earlier depths. In general, monsters scale to have more life but less damage than before. We've improved monster skills and bio modifiers to make deeper depths more challenging to go with their better rewards. Due to these changes, we've wiped the standard Delve ladders but have retained your previous depth on your characters. To get back on the ladder, just play at whatever depth you were still able to complete. We've also improved the Delve catch-up mechanic. Previously, if you entered Delve for the first time at level 90, you'd be taken to a depth that is the equivalent of Tier 1 maps. Now we'll be taken to the equivalent of Tier 13 maps. This means that if you want, you can essentially ignore Delve until the late game rather than having to play as you go. We've increased the base soul fight cap from 600 to 1200. Underground cities are now more common and you'll encounter bosses more often, including all. You can rarely find fractured items with delve modifiers on them. We've also increased fossil and resonator availability throughout the Azurite mine. Fossil availability outside of delve has been reduced. All resonators drops are now chaotic resonators, with alchemical resonators not dropping anymore. We've also improved the least powerful fossils. It has been a long time since we've done a big rework of Path of Exile's iconic passive skill tree. The Scourge expansion includes quite a lot of changes, and before I list them, I want to emphasize that our goal here has been to keep the tree as similar to before as possible. All of your years of muscle memory will not be wasted. The tree will still feel like the back of your hand despite our changes. While planning this rework, we examined every aspect of the passive skill tree. We reviewed and improved each of the tree's class start areas, we added new clusters of skills, improved existing ones, and concentrated power more directly on each skill's primary function. The process of doing this identified that many passive skills had niche stats that didn't matter to most characters or distracted away from the purpose of what the skill was trying to do. When we took niche stats away from a skill, we buffed the primary function of the skill so that it was more concentrated on one purpose. While I'm sure that powerful passive skills sound great to you, you're probably wondering what happened to all of those niche stats. You see, while we were doing this revamp, we realized that specific build-enabling niche stats appearing in specific locations on the tree actually constrained players' passive builds in quite severe ways. Players who wanted to get several specific niche stats often had little flexibility with the rest of their tree because they had to plan around getting to the specific clusters that had those niche stats in them. We decided we wanted to solve both problems at once here, to move niche stats off the main tree, but also to provide a way to get them, preferably from many different locations all over the passive skill tree. And that's how we came up with a passive masteries system. Outside of the class start locations, all passive skill clusters that have a notable passive in them now contain a passive mastery. When you allocate the first notable passive in each cluster, a mastery becomes available to allocate in that cluster. When you spend a passive skill point on the mastery, you can choose a specific stat to gain. This list is shared with all the clusters on the tree that have the same theme, so you can travel to any of them to get the stat you want. As you allocate a mastery stat, it's crossed off the list for that theme. This mastery system has essentially let us add hundreds of powerful new notable passives that you can access from all over the tree. In addition to the stats that we moved into masteries when consolidating power on the rest of the tree, we got to come up with a bunch of new interesting niche stuff to enable even more builds. We've also rebalanced a few keystone passives, changed the locations of some, and added 6 new keystones to the tree. Overall, Path of Exile's passive skill tree is now a lot more powerful, with concentrated power coming from core passives, and a selection of build-enabling niche stats available on masteries for you to pick between. Path of Exile Scourge introduces a whole variety of new skill gems with many different purposes. 2 of them are new concepts unlike anything we have done before. These ones are designed to immediately create entirely new builds that have a lot of potential. There's also a utility skill that will help characters stay alive, a variation on an existing skill gem, and 6 new gems designed for party play. Let's go through the new skills. Energy Blade is a new skill that transforms your melee weapons into, well, energy blades. A large portion of your energy shield is converted into the lightning damage that these blades deal. This opens up an entirely new melee energy shield archetype, where you want to stack as much energy shield as possible to get the most powerful blades you can. Conveniently, the defenses rework in this expansion is very compatible with this plan. Temporal Rift is a new utility skill that allows you to rewind your character's state by 4 seconds. After activating the skill, it starts storing your position, life, mana, and energy shield values every quarter second. When you use the skill again, you will rerun back to 4 seconds ago. The build shown here uses the Forbidden Rite skill introduced in the last expansion. This skill does a lot of damage, but also hurts the caster when used. Temporal Rift allows this player to snapshot their full life orb, cast Forbidden Rite a lot, and then revert back to full life to keep casting. Not only is Temporal Rift incredibly useful in hardcore mode for obvious reasons, or while exploring maps efficiently, but it also enables some interesting tricks with mana. Come to think of it, it'll be pretty cool in Delve as well if you don't mess up the timing. Temporal Rift also prevents temporal chains from affecting you while it is in use. Tornado is another new skill. As the name suggests, it creates a tornado that relentlessly moves towards enemies and pulses with damage. While the tornado is forming, you have a couple of seconds where it will absorb damage from projectiles you hit it with. Fire as many projectiles as you can into it during that period and it'll power up, greatly increasing its damage output. In the Expedition expansion, we introduced a skill called Explosive Concoction. Based on player feedback, we are improving the skill so that its projectiles are thrown faster, have a higher base crit chance, and have greater speed. Now that we feel that Explosive Concoction is sufficiently powerful, we are introducing a similar new skill called Poisonous Concoction. As the name implies, this one deals poison damage rather than fire damage, and consumes charges from your life flasks rather than your elemental flasks. Poisonous Concoction scales its damage based on how much life the consumed flasks recover, which encourages you to craft your flasks to take advantage of this. It's quite rare for us to introduce skills that only work for party play, but in the Scourge expansion we have created a set of 6 that function in similar ways but do different things. These link skills create a bond between you and a specific party member, providing a big benefit to them while they stay within range, but with the very important drawback that if they die, so do you. Soul Link protects your target by causing a percentage of damage they are dealt to be applied to your energy shield instead. If you have built a tanky character with a lot of energy shield, then you and your target will be protected by it. Protective Link grants your target a chance to block attacks that is equal to yours, and also grants some life gain on block to them. By default, the obvious use of this link skill is to allow you to specialize in block, and then use it to protect an ally that is specialized in something else, like damage. But there are some cool tricks you might discover. For example, the Glancing Blows keystone passive doubles your block chance, but changes that so that you still take some damage from blocked attacks. In conjunction with Protective Link though, your target will receive your doubled block chance, but won't receive the drawback. Intuitive Link is socketed alongside a spell on your character, and that spell is triggered from your target's location when they hit an enemy. This could be useful, for example, if you have a party member who's cycloning through enemies, and you can trigger your spells from within those packs of enemies without having to get close yourself. There are 3 other link skills that we will reveal closer to release. As this expansion does include significant nerfs to aura bot characters who stack auras for the benefit of their party members, these link skills give them a viable, more active playstyle. Link skills cannot normally be used with your minions, but we're adding a minion mastery to the passive skill tree that allows you to use link skills with them. However, this has a high ongoing mana cost that is difficult to stay on top of. In Path of Exile Scourge, we've done a lot of balance work improving flasks, ailment mitigation, general character defenses, and elemental damage over time. We've made some changes to how stacking auras and curses works, and have buffed most awakened support gems. We've posted about the changes we intend in the last couple of weeks, and have been iterating on these changes based on testing and your feedback. We are posting the full Scourge patch notes after the Q&A portion of this livestream, so we'd encourage you to check out the full details of the balance changes there. We first introduced guilds alongside Path of Exile's initial release in October 2013. Our guild leaders and members have been patient for a very long time, and after 8 years, we're rewarding that patience with a wave of guild quality of life features. As a game about items, the functional heart of a Path of Exile guild is its stash. You can finally control-click items into and out of your guild stash and access other features such as the drop-down list of stashes, drag-and-drop stash ordering, affinities, etc. We have also introduced guild versions of all of the types of premium stash tabs, so guilds can finally enjoy popular tabs such as currency or map tabs. While shared guild tabs are a little more expensive than individual tabs because of their server costs and development overhead, we have bundled all of the exotic ones together in a single discounted bundle for guilds that want to invest in the whole lot at once. We have also added the ability to export a CSV file of your guild stash activity log for convenient auditing. We wanted to pair functional with fun, so we've introduced guild hideouts. Guild leaders can select any in-game or microtransaction hideout that they have unlocked and create a guild hideout based on that template. These hideouts are a great place to hold guild meetings or to just have as a space for members to meet up between maps. If you're hanging out in your guild's hideout, you can use its map device as though it was your own. We understand that not everyone is in a guild, so there's one hideout-related feature that we wanted to mention. We have entirely removed the favor system from Path of Exile. From this expansion onwards, all hideout decorations that could previously be obtained with favor are now available to all players in unlimited quantities, both personal and guild hideouts. Now, there's nothing stopping you from making the hideout of your dreams. We've also added a system that allows you to filter decorations by tag because there are just so many available to you by default now. alongside Path of Exile Scourge, we're introducing the Expedition content from our last expansion into Path of Exile's core game, with a few adjustments. Expedition artifacts are no longer tradable items, which has two key effects. The first is that they are automatically collected as you complete expeditions, and the second is that all characters can now engage with the Calgary merchants without having to feel that their best plan is to trade the currency away to other players who may use it more efficiently than them. It's a difficult decision working out whether to make specific items tradable or not, but we feel that on balance, this new approach will solve several problems with the system. It's also worth noting that the currency items that allow you to re-roll the vendor's inventories are still tradable. You'll start finding expeditions from Act 6 onwards. There's an 8% chance for a map to contain an expedition, and they can be further augmented through investment in the appropriate Atlas passive skill tree. As we move new leagues to core, we will replace outdated obsolete content. In this case, Expedition replaces Perandus. Details are in the patch notes. While clicking on items is a critical part of playing an action RPG, there's a fine line before it becomes a chore, and we're trying hard to make sure that clicks on items come with appropriate reward. Expedition artifacts being automatically picked up isn't the only improvement we're making to reduce unnecessary clicks in this expansion. In order to make sure that each stack of currency items is worth a click, we're trying out a system where currency items drop less frequently, but in larger stack sizes. For example, Scrolls of Wisdom in the late game might drop 1/10 of the time, but when they do, it'll be in stacks of 6 to 14. This means that the click that you will make will gain you a much more meaningful amount of currency at once. We have applied this to many different types of currency items, and the effect of the system gets larger as you get further into the game. In addition, we've had a look at instances where item drops happen simultaneously, and we've made it so that items that can drop in stacks will automatically do so. This includes at the end of delves, incursions, rituals, blight encounters, breachstones, and the simulacrum. We have also applied this approach to many chests and areas like splinter drops throughout Path of Exile. Before we move on to our final announcement and live Q&A, let's have a quick look at the new set of supporter packs that are available right now to celebrate the launch of Path of Exile Scourge and help fund ongoing development of Path of Exile. Based on player feedback, we've increased the value of the $30 and $60 supporter packs by adding $5 worth of points to each one. This means that you now receive the full value of what you spend in points, with the new sets of exclusive cosmetic microtransactions on top. These include armor sets, weapon skins, portals, shields, and helmet attachments. The Ancient Dread pack contains an exclusive pair of wings, and the Intrepid Liege pack contains an exclusive pet. These new packs each have 3 value tiers that you can upgrade between within their respective series. Thank you so much for your support. Purchases of these supporter packs make expansions like Scourge possible. Shortly we'll begin our Q&A and we'll answer your burning questions, but first, we have another quick announcement to make. In the Expedition League, we teamed up with Twitch rivals to run our first ever Path of Exile Royale live tournament. This event saw our favorite content creators teaming up in pairs to compete for awesome prizes. We're excited to announce that following the launch of Path of Exile Scourge, we're doing it again. This time around, competitors will compete alone, but we've added a unique twist. Towards the end of the match, surviving players may encounter a brutal but rewarding boss fight, which could have significant strategic implications for how they play the match. There's $30,000 of cash on the line alongside some of Path of Exile's best microtransactions. Tune in on October 28th at twitch.tv/twitchrivals to see who will decimate their competition. That concludes the reveal portion of this livestream. Keep an eye on our news next week as we reveal more details about the Scourge expansion. In the meantime, these reveals are already live on YouTube for you to link to your friends in case they missed the livestream. Please do so and join us as we battle the Scourge alongside you next week. It's now time for the Q&A. If you have any questions about what we've shown you today, please get them ready because I'm about to be joined by Ziggy D as we answer your questions from Twitch chat, and after that, we'll be posting the full Path of Exile Scourge patch notes.
Wow, wow, co to kurwa było? Dobra. Dropu jeszcze nie mam, nie? Jeszcze 45 minut, czy chyba całego ZGD oglądać. Dobra, będę sobie go słuchał. Tak. Nie da się wejść? Dobra, co tu, no tu mamy? Tworzy nam stream. Okej. Co jeszcze nie ma tego na stronie? Zawsze było. Jak wisi strona. Aktualizuję. To mi się wydaje. Ale najbardziej co mi się podoba to, że ekspedycję poprawili. O, mogę wziąć drop. Cza. Kliknąć. Nie, w czacie. Tu gdzieś powinien drop być. Dobra, będą gadać.
Welcome back, folks. Ziggy D here, joined once again by Chris Wilson. Good morning, Chris. How you going?
Hey, good, thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
That was a pretty massive set of reveals this time around. I feel like you guys have been working overboard, and I think chat's reaction has been pretty excited so far this morning.
Yeah, that was
the patch notes releasing right after this presentation is a bit of a change as well. It's much sooner than usual. Have things gone really smoothly this time, or do you guys have like a new process?
Nie no, Jeffko, to będzie rozjebane.
Yeah, we're trying to use the patch notes as a bit of a development aid. So previously what we'd have is people would make a lot of changes to Path of Exile, good and bad, and when it came down to actually explaining the changes to the players, in some cases we didn't actually have an explanation other than we feel like doing this change, which I feel is a perfectly valid way to change the game, but when you have to justify it later, it doesn't really hold water and doesn't make for a compelling explanation. So nowadays, we've taken to a process of actually identifying what are the problems we're going to solve, how would we describe that problem to the community, how would we summarize our solution to the community, and then work on the actual specifics of that. And so this has come across in the balance manifesto we posted, and also it means a lot of the patch notes are ready early. And so we found that it helps a lot in the past when we post patch notes, people start working on making their builds and so on. And so
przecież to będzie dokurwione z Jeffkiem. Ciekawe, czy się dużo zmieniło. W ogóle strona wisi. Może zrobili to specjalnie.
Yeah, perfect. Because I think I'm going to need the extra time with the new master assistant and all of that. Seems like some pretty major changes there, but we'll get into that in a second. Let's start off with Scourge. So in the intro to Scourge, one part really stood out to me. You said that a stranger asks you to implant this rusty device into your body, and then the character just does it without question. So my question is, what's wrong with our characters?
I mean, you don't have to, right? If you don't get the red pill, as it were, you can just play the league without the device, and then nothing happens. You know, you don't get to shift and so on. We were going for a bit of a
ciekawe, jak sobie POB poradzi z tym wszystkim.
The players kind of expecting it to click nicely into the socket without any gore.
So wait, does it like burst out blood or something when you do it? Is it like an operating procedure or something?
Yeah, I mean, just imagine you're at some, dystopian future and you go to some body mod person for a cybernetic enhancement and they don't use any anesthetic and you're just getting it straight in, that's the kind of vibe we're going for here, is that...
Dobra, no to widziałem.
There's no safety or hygiene going on with this
operation. Mapy, stakowanie, okej.
Beach is not exactly a clean environment.
Byli czasem zbyt. To co udostępniałem wcześniej. To się potwierdziło. To się potwierdziło. Tak, nowe karty. O, w ogóle o nowych kartach nic nie mówili. Kamera mi opadła. 22. Te karty tak wrzucałem, taka Relating Times Valve. To również.
So you can pick them up when
Shaper
they drop,
Guard
but
Map.
if you don't, then they're still there in the main world, and this is why the character is backtracked to where they were, because it means that you're going to have to play through the regular world version of that content just like you normally would, and the items that had dropped during the Scourge encounter are there for you to pick up.
Ravage,
Maybe
Blight.
if you decide you're going
Ta
to
mapa
play
będzie
something that's
dropić
something that you've
z
already
Blighta.
played, then that might be an issue, but generally in our testing you're progressing forward through the area, and so you could just run forward when you're doing the Scourge encounter and pick the items up afterwards if you don't get a chance to grab them during it.
I think that's important because
Mamy
usually
dalej.
whenever there's any sort of
Delirium
timed
Orb, tak.
aspect to something, in this case the blood
O
vials
tej
that
karcie
are being
mówiłem.
out, people
Tuż co się
might not
zmieniło?
necessarily
Aha,
want
właśnie.
time to maximize
Breachstone
and so on.
dodatkowy.
How
Mocniejszy.
does party play work in Scourge?
So the resource is shared among all the members in the party, and anyone can activate shifting into or out of Nightmare whenever the bar is at the...
Najlepsze jest to, że te
and this shifts
dropy
everyone's
już nie trzeba
abilities,
zbierać po
and
drodze,
you
tylko
don't
na
have to
samym
be the
końcu
one that
dropną.
shifted into Nightmare to shift the party out of it. And then the other thing is, if someone dies while shifted, it costs a big chunk of the blood resource for everyone else. So basically, if your party are failing hard, you're going to get shifted out of it a lot earlier.
Ten influenzot i ten aspirant. Wszystko to, co wrzuciłem w filmiku przed zapowiedzią, się potwierdziło w sumie.
Yeah, exactly. You'll get the chance to shift far more frequently because of the fact that you've got a bunch of people in your party.
True.
Teraz sobie jeszcze raz to oglądam. Na spokojnie.
With this whole shifting mechanic, like what happened? How does it work with monsters being around you when you shift in? Are you just like in the middle of a pack sometimes? Is it random? Are they like spaced around players intelligently? How did you guys develop that system?
Well, this was an interesting one because we wanted to create the feeling of an alternate reality where there was a demon invasion going on. So like Delirium is adding monsters, but of course we still had to deal with the monsters that are in the current area. And I think players will find a good compromise where there's plenty of new stuff to fight, but of course it's not switching completely between two completely different realities as such. You do have an overlay of the monsters.
I feel like I'm
Zawsze tu było.
an ambush with this one.
Nie puszczaj się teraz. Announcement 2?
Very smart, because I was wondering, yeah, if you like just happen to shift in the middle of a pack.
Halo.
But it sounds like
Co to
you
jest?
have a counter mechanic to that.
So you can use shifting as a way
What?
of standing nearby enemies if you like demons.
Nie mówcie, że jeszcze na końcu coś puszczą. Co? Otwórzmy sobie tą stronę. Dobra, to jest... To jest... Dobra, zapowiedź, ale co to jest to?
There are plot implications of Scourge that go beyond the League, but it certainly is a new set of demons the player hasn't encountered before.
Ah, okay, cool. What does the unique item can be transformed, upgrade in the Scourge passives do specifically?
So initially we were just planning that you could scourge your rare items, and so we decided that if the player invests into it and choose to spend points, then it's probably tolerable that people can scourge uniques. And so this is the one we'll regret, I suspect, where people make some ridiculous chase uniques from their existing ones. So yeah, basically if you choose to allocate that, then you
Będzie coś jeszcze, jakaś zapowiedź. LOL.
to scourge them just like rare items.
I mean, I love the idea of like modifying uniques further, but it's effectively similar to corruption.
Może po tej rozmowie, ja nie wiem.
Anyway, so it does make sense.
There's some pretty pushy stuff you can get here though, so I do.
Bo przecież tego tu kurwa nie ma.
Some interesting potential to combo with the actual unique mechanics themselves or anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. And like I want to emphasize with the scourged items, right? So you watch the trailer and you see drawbacks and positive and negative mods, and you think, okay, maybe these items are usable, but honestly, the design is the following, right? There are negative mods that do not affect each build, and the way to win here is to get the negative mods that don't affect you. And so, practically speaking, good scourged items are entirely upside, and then they turn off something your character doesn't even do. And you get multiple tries at gambling towards getting that. So it's not just a case of putting it in, ruining the item. Basically, you get your 3 shots, and it's certainly
będzie Path of Exile 2.
Let's just say that.
Going back to that passive tree, how long does it take, roughly, do you estimate, to unlock the upgrades for that passive tree, and are they also shared across characters?
So,
co to
they are
jest?
shared across characters. It's league account, as we call
Ja
it.
chcę dostęp do tego.
League on that account get access to it. So it's like your Atlas progress, for example.
LOL.
You can generally unlock a lot of the passives on your first playthrough, right? It's not designed to take a mega grind to get what you need, but to unlock absolutely everything is possible. It's just going to take quite a while, right? Like
Ale
obviously some players who
dobrze
follow
pisałem na
the
grupie
policy
Path of Exile, że będziemy zbierać krew albo coś wydawać
you're
i
playing
zamieniać.
style that suits what you're doing, and then your friend can make the other
No,
types of
kurwa,
items that you're
rację.
not making.
Are there any that you would necessarily want to turn off, and can they be turned off, or are they all just good anyway?
I'm pretty sure they all are pure upside. I mean, for example, there's one that says that when it transforms an item, it'll exalt a mod onto, well, it has a chance of exalting the mod onto an empty slot. There might be some absolute niche case where you don't want something added to that slot, but I honestly can't think of it, right? Like it's corrupted,
Yeah.
so you're not crafting it any further. Like any mastercrafts and stuff, you've already had a chance to apply.
Powiedzcie, co to jest to.
You know, unless we're adding like corrupted exalts or something like that in the future, this is entirely upside.
Uh-oh. On that
Of
note,
course,
the
Painted Exalted Orb would be the name of that item, but I don't think that's happening.
oh no. Do the tainted socket currencies
118 map z unikami. Będzie jakieś 100 map.
or are they an improved rate?
They have exactly the
15
same ones as the
uników.
regular ones.
Are they as common or
No.
more or less common than the drops wise?
Different. They drop from Scourge monsters, so they're more common from those monsters, obviously, but then you're not spending all day fighting. Well, maybe you are spending all day fighting Scourge monsters if you're playing properly. There's no recipe to make these. Like, it's worth noting, a lot of existing items in the economy do come from vendor recipes. Like, we're looking at a map of Divine Orbs recently, and that's nuts. You know, there's some sixlings getting traded in there.
Koruptowalne itemy będą teraz kraftowalne. Czy da się kraftować, ale jeszcze łatwiej to będzie można zrobić. Ciekawe, ile to będzie kosztować.
And it's also worth noting that these are not meant to replace the crafting bench's Val recipes, right? Just to heavily augment it and to provide a much more convenient way of quickly changing some stuff on your items and to prevent you having to like stock up on tons of Val orbs. But that's still a viable way of changing sockets. And the cheapest way of changing sockets is to do it before you corrupt the
Zinc.
Absolutely.
Co to jest?
So on the item scourging, how long does it take to scourge an item roughly? Like one map, multiple maps worth of demon slaying?
This depends a little bit on what Crucible passives you've allocated, because of course some of them will speed up the process of certain types of items, and you might decide to instead get better items and have the process go a bit more slowly. It also depends on where you are in the game, because obviously you're killing monsters faster potentially towards the end game due to the
Enchantmenty można w koruptowalnych rzeczach też zmieniać. Super.
It also matters what tier of scourging you're going
Skip?
for. It's designed so the first tier of scourging is quite easy, and the remaining ones, which are kind of icing on the cake to get the good mods or to fix unlucky outcomes, certainly take a lot longer. Like that's a choice that you have to make to do those ones. But basically, we've tried to pitch it so it's a few areas you play through in the campaign, which may become several maps or a number of maps when you're playing in the end game. I believe if you're doing like a tier 3 scourging project on some complicated item, it might take potentially more than 10, 20 maps to tier 3 scourge something, but this will come down a lot to final numbers that are still being tweaked in our last week of playtesting. We're expecting to drop this on alpha probably today with the league enabled, which will be nice because this one's ready ahead of schedule, so we'll get some good feedback from playtesters there, and please do not email me asking for alpha access. The policy is just to say no. We will be doing an intake at some stage, but we'll post that in the news, right? The only way to get in is through that news post. Don't email me. Okay. Sorry, I said it's like 20.
So do message you on MSN Messenger.
Udostępnili po
You
prostu
can message me
ten.
on MSN Messenger.
Nice. So I kind of asked the question design-wise. To scourge an item, you have to put it in a separate window, which unequips it from your character. Doesn't this kind of discourage you from scourging items that you're currently using, as you have to play for X amount of time without them, like up to 10, 20 maps, like you said?
Yes, it absolutely does, and that's intentional. And this is because when you scourge the item, you can totally ruin it, right? Like there are downsides there. For example, if you turn off physical damage and you're a physical build, that item is not helpful to you for a while. And so it's very intentional that you're putting side project items in that window to level them up rather than the gear you're actually using. Because if you could level up your currently equipped weapon and you transform it and now it doesn't work anymore, you'd be really stuck. So this forces you to be using a backup item. And that creates strategic choices of whether, which item it is and so on, what you're working on.
Sulfit. Dobra, tu mamy ścieżkę sulfitu, tutaj mamy też sulfit, stromboxy. To jest też strombox, ok, tu mamy strombox na Waldo i sulfit. Tu mamy co? Harbinger, tak jak był. Delirium. Light.
Nice. I saw that there was scourging multiple items at once as an option. Both the slot
Na Waldo będzie Light, Delirium,
longer?
Harbinger,
Do you have more items in there? Like, is the corruption split between them? Or
Strongbox
is each one its own independent
i
thing, so there's
Sulfit.
no, like, loss for scourging multiple items at once?
To będzie atlas wyglądał.
So that's pure the ability to work on multiple projects.
4 strefy,
This is helpful, of course,
118 map,
Scourge is gonna
czyli
take a while.
100
Maybe
map,
you're trying to like bake a map to like 10 or something like that. Then you
jakieś 100 map zwykłych i 18 unikatowych, czy 15 jest unikatowych, coś takiego.
So how quick during leveling will transforming happening, like to make sure that the item stays relevant?
Może pojawią się jakieś nowe, ale nie, chyba nie. To było, to było, też. To. Nie, nie ma jakichś nowych. Wszystkie uniki te, które były.
The next question is kind of roughly in the area of like timed content and driving people to certain builds with things like Breach and Legion, or especially like
Ale
4-ways and 5-way.
zobaczymy, czy się to odblokowało. Nie, dalej nie.
How do you guys consider that when designing a league that has some kind
Czemu?
of pseudo timer?
Ja jestem w szoku, ale do tego jest dostęp, do tego nie. Dobra, klastery. Teraz co tu mamy? Tu doszło nowe mody do Delva. Prawie Consumer 39 Ready to Sulfit. O, to jest fajne akurat. City Chambers may contain consual chest, ok. Type passage contention more resonators. Lepszy drop. Co, nowy boss? Chyba tak. Rezonatory chyba już nie będą dostępne, tak? W Delwie. Można je kupić. Do Sulfit. Mi się wydaje, że tak słyszałem. Dobra, Lira Art, fine. Co mamy? Mamy ekspedycję. A, doszła ekspedycja. Tak. Do Liry. A tak to zostaje wszystko to samo, co było. Czyli Breach. Oj, tak, co tam jeszcze było? To jest Guild Stash.
You know, I mean, for example, in hard mode, it's very relevant. The speed you kill monsters is, of course, lower because of the power cap there, and so this is something.
Nic co ciekawego nie ma, oprócz tego, że jest bardziej skrzynka upgrade'owana. Nowy skill. Poza. Jest ten link jakiś nowy.
Since you mentioned it, I was going to ask at the end of the Q&A, but you mentioned hard mode. Check. So, what's happening with hard mode, Chris?
So we're planning to release hard mode into testing at some stage after 3.16 is released. It wasn't ready in time, and we're not going to sacrifice a day of 3.16s of Scourge's doing for hard mode. And so basically the intention is at some point during 3.16, some way that the public can test it. Those who are interested and have a bash at that. I mean, we're keeping the news out of the live stream because it's not relevant at the moment, and it is for a niche group of players, but we'll certainly be communicating heavily.
Dobra, nowy belt. Strength of Fire Cold. Magic Utility Flask can be used. Ograniczenie dla flaszek.
We have to be careful that we don't want to undermine the importance of the league start. If you see what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the league started as a super hype event where the economy matters and people are racing to get the best stuff and discover
Tak,
all the
nie
cool
można
things.
ich usunąć
So
i
when they know that in 2
jesteśmy
weeks' time or
tą
something, this isn't
flaszkę.
2 weeks, it's more like 6.
Dobra.
If people
Tool
know that
Made
in 2
no.
weeks' time there's
Inset
some other
amulet,
premiums to
nowy
play, they
amulet.
won't push as hard, they won't try to get the items for their
Dropiący
characters that they
z
would otherwise choose to get.
tego.
So in general, I prefer to start everything at the same time, but I don't want to wait to 3.17 to get some testing underway for hard mode, but they just need to view the initial version of what we release
Socket
as
not
testing, right? Like, you know, have a go, give us some
Houses
feedback, and then
super
play it properly when it comes out in
body
3.17.
armor.
You've certainly hyped this mode, Chris, so I'm pretty eager to give it a try. See what it's all about, eh?
It's fine when it probably won't be hard mode, I should add.
Ale to jest kozak, co
When
wymyślili.
we announce
Naprawdę.
some mode,
Kozak.
is this an
Kurwa.
addition to hard mode?
That's going to be hard to change the name now. You've said it so many times. Let's move on to a different topic, changing pace a little bit. The new end game. Previously, the initial round of conquerors were quite straightforward, but then things got a lot more complex as you needed to start.
Ludzie odchodzą, a nie wiedzą, że na stronie jest ten.
Not accidentally do content that didn't make any progress and all of that. It was a
Czy
whole
jakiś
thing.
drugi anons.
So how does the new 4-region atlas affect the conqueror cycle now? Is it just like super straightforward the whole way?
So fewer regions means less complexity with where watchstones go. There's fewer options there. This helps with the complexity, but doesn't entirely eliminate it. Of course, it's still the system that it was. You get to choose where to put watchstones and when you put them there and which watchstones they are, but you have fewer choices, fewer options there, so it is somewhat simpler. Basically, it generally works exactly the same as before, but with less regions. And it also means there's less variance in the state of your atlas. Like previously with 8 regions, there was a lot of spikes of this place is specialized in this thing or is very high level or whatever. Fewer regions means that on average, things are more similar to each other. There's less juggling of mechanics and stuff.
O co chodzi,
All the
kurwa,
mechanics
z tym
are still
drugim
there. So basically, it's the
zapowiedzią?
simplification it probably needed. We may have taken it too far with the first version.
This is also an interesting timing for this because next league effectively you
Dobra.
new
Mam nadzieję, że się
Next
w
league is the
drzewku
big endgame one, so that should be very interesting. And this
ogarnę.
think of it as an experiment, right? Like if at the end of the day people like absolutely love the simplified stuff,
Czyli
then we'll look in that
zdobywając
direction for the
tutaj
next league. If it has
perki,
consequences, like let's say people barely played it because there's less to do
passives.
potentially before you max out your maps. In that case, it's
Jeden za jakieś główne mamy możliwość wybrania jedno z paru dodatkowych wzmocnień. To jest dobre. Ale czy to można zmieniać tak sobie?
We've been examining philosophically how we want the in-game progress of an action RPG to be, and we believe that having your power gain
Gdzieś było na filmiku zaznaczone, że było odcięte. Jest strona nowa, nowa, ale był ulepszona.
The rewards are smaller and smaller and spaced out further and further, and that is probably better than the player having this huge power gain dangled over them, which is just a real pain to actually get to because they want their character to be finished.
Oh, I just got a Twitch drop. Thanks, guys.
O, to jest fajne.
They
On dostał dropa, a ja?
Most of the new Uber tiers of content are gained through a drop, like the Blight Ravaged maps.
45 minut oglądam.
Access to the new aspirational content in which we can test our characters.
Moderately rarely. So, but we want
Trzeba było odpalić to wcześniej. A, mam dropa.
Right? Like we want it to be valuable and hard to get to because of the rewards. They're pretty nuts. And we also want it to be valuable and hard to get to because it's difficult. And that goes back to the old Maelstrom of Chaos lesson that we had, where if you give people unlimited access to any tier of difficulty, they pick the highest one because they see it on Twitch, and then they complain relentlessly that their character that's barely got to maps isn't able to do the highest tier of them. And so we've learned that the more difficult something is, the harder it should be to obtain access to that. Having said that, we're still trying to give these out as often as we can, right? Like,
I przeczytajmy ją.
we'll have conversations where we say for every X of the normal Uber content you do you
Nie,
get
dobrze,
the
był
next tier of
udostępniony.
content, and
O,
those X's
to
are
daleko.
relatively low. It's designed that a person is going to get to it. They're not waiting a whole week to
Skoczę
see it.
tier 1. Aha, bo to było tak, że można upgrade'ować 3 razy dany przedmiot.
Trade for with some value.
No i trzeba zostać z jedną z wybranych opcji, która nam pasuje, bo może być minusowa, a może być plusowa. Tak, tutaj jest Strange Requirement. Znaczy to jest jako minus, zawsze gorsze się... A nie, to jest Lightning Resistance plus 18. No physical damage. Aha, ale tu nie zadajemy... Także któraś z tych jest negatywna, a druga pozytywna. Żeby być ciekawie, można to fajnie spitolić. Ale jest ten orb, który zamienia enchanty, więc jest szansa, że może... Nie, pewnie się nie da tego zmienić. Ciekawe jak... Gdzieś tu był ten orb.
But it isn't guaranteed that finishing a blighted map gives you a blight ravaged map. Instead, it might take more like. And this is me
Gdzie to było
picking up where I
dalej?
haven't seen, but
A może
say
będzie
10
dalej,
or
dobra.
something like that. It might
Nie
be
no, przecież mówiłem o tym.
This one might be a detail you don't know offhand, but where do you gain access to blight ravaged maps? Like early level is possible for them to drop, or only high level?
My
Like
understanding is
tier
it's just
blighted
higher
maps?
Gdzie
tiers,
to
but
było?
I'm going to be told in a few seconds what tier that is. I'm thinking 14 based on some memory from a past life. Yeah, tier 14 plus.
Nice. Okay, cool. I like that. That was fun. Tier 14 plus blight maps.
Dobra, nieważne.
Delve
Może
specific
dalej
mods
jest.
can now drop fractured and locked in place, which I love, having recently gone through crafting a spectre chest.
24 house
Is that always the
rezystancji,
case,
no
or can
cold
they still
damage
drop the
liczy
fractured
live.
ones too?
It's very rare for them to drop as fractured ones. I should emphasize, like as you've
Oh,
seen,
house
fractured
damage.
ones are nice, right? If you can lock on that +1
Lol.
scepter thing, regardless of what you do with the item, you can have
Never deal
specters.
critical.
And so it's very valuable.
Wręcz
This is a
strikes.
slim possibility of aspirational reward you can get from that content. It
Takie
is
bardziej
not
klątwy.
like candy. No one really expected it to be anyway, right?
I actually kind
to
of like that
wygląda.
because it means that on the market there'll be cheap.
Ale dobrze mówiłem, że będziemy zabijać, będziemy uzupełniać coś i będzie można
And then
odprawić
there'll
tam.
be the ones you can craft that are god tier.
Right.
Wiem, to
It's like
10
the
sekund
grasping
trwa.
male situation. People were doing complicated things with grasping males in order
Ja
to
już
get
bym chciał
fractured
to
mods on them and
pograć.
so on, and we've provided an alternate way to achieve that now. But it still requires a bunch of work. Like the intention is that fractured mods are to some extent kind of the pinnacle of crafting reward because you just get a guaranteed thing that you know you can plan around, whereas it's
Przyda
much
się.
RNG in the rest of the game. So they're not going to be ever easy to get.
I quite like those rewards, those fractured item drops as exciting.
O,
Like
zajebiście.
said,
Więc już
those
nie trzeba się
aspirational
męczyć do
content.
wycinania.
Speaking of the rewards, there's the Unatal's Vow, which is
kozak.
obviously a drop for the Uber Unatal.
Yes.
But there is probably not enough uniques in your revealed
Tak.
amount of uniques to be.
Tego nie rozumiem, co to jest. Twisted Metal Armor.
So
Co?
what sort of
Question
rewards
mark
they get?
corruption.
Is it planned
Aha.
they'll get stuff in the future? What's kind of the deal there?
So my understanding is
Tam
that
to jest
the
jakieś
Uber
takie
areas don't
wzmocnienie do tego.
necessarily have their own new custom rewards. They can in some
Czy
cases give
or
much better chances of
capsule,
existing ones.
czy
I'm just checking with the
corruption.
team. So Mark clarifies
Ciekawe, że
that
to
the
da się
Unatal
wszystko
Vow can drop
zapełnić,
from
czy
future
o
forms.
co
It's
to
not just Unatal.
chodzi?
Like
Czy
to
to
some
sobie
extent, it's the
wybieramy,
case of
które
the
chcemy?
designers saying let's put an amulet on the Breach Lords, and someone saying Unatal, he's a Breach Lord, let's give it that name, and it's not really cohesively seeing how it communicates to the players. But yes,
No,
all
to
of them
są
made
te
up its
currency nowe.
Not to critique the unique designers, but why
No,
is the Unatal
corrupted.
amulet purple? That was really confusing because when I was
To
making
jest
my video, I
socket
was
do
like,
corrupted. Jest
wait,
kuzyn
I
do
thought it was a
corrupted.
Triulu unique. This
Zajebiście.
is purple.
No i to jest tak. Blight,
That's a great
a to jest
question.
Blight
Maybe
River.
from someone's
Czym to się
performance. No,
różni?
I'm just kidding.
Rys to 10, a to 30 chest.
Oops.
Z 10, a to jest
There's a couple of
30.
other
Tower
Scourge
deal
rewards
20
from
more
rewards
damage.
from chat that I thought were pretty good.
Okej.
Can you Scourge other
Reduce the
item
cost of
bases
building
like
and
jewels
upgrade
and
tower.
flasks and weird stuff like that? Or is it just kind of basic?
Czyli doszło change
I
for
believe
dark
it's
chest
equipable equipment,
to contain
not flasks,
additional
and
reward.
includes uniques and
Trade and
maps.
contact area
Someone
contain
clarify
after
on
czy
the team,
additional
please.
blight bosses. Aha.
Yeah, jewels would be the
No takie
unique
bardziej
ones,
wzmocnione to
like,
jest, nie?
kind of equipable, I guess.
QA team
No i
scrambles to make sure
Breachstone,
it's
który
not jewels and flasks.
może
Not
być
jewels and flasks, got it.
czały, a
Awesome.
Breachstone może być
There
na
was something else, but
flawless.
I've forgotten it, so I'll come
Flawless.
back to it.
Breachstone.
Back on the passive
Wzmocniony.
skill tree this time. Can the new passive masteries be changed at will after being allocated?
So they
Co
get
to
reset
jest
like
to?
any other allocated skill because they're allocated like any other allocated skill.
No teraz
It's
nie ma...
just that they appear once you've allocated a
O.
notable. So you path through the notable, put a point in it, and then you can put a point in the mastery, choose which one it is, and if you want to respec it, you just respec it, then you respec the notable and pull out of the whole cluster if you want to.
Okay, cool. And just to be clear, getting multiple notables in a cluster that have more than one doesn't give more masteries. It's one per
That's correct.
cluster, right?
It's the first notable in each cluster will unlock the mastery. And for clarity here, I hope it was obvious from the explanation in the video, but Fire Mastery, for example, has a bunch of options. You can get many of those options by just allocating multiple clusters and pick a
Może
notable.
specjalnie, żeby kurna,
Awesome.
dać to do
Awesome.
końca. No
I'm
patrzę
really
na
looking
zegarek.
forward to
Ty
this.
kończmy
I'm
już,
super
bo
excited
musimy
about playing
announcement 2
If you
puścić.
anoint a notable, then, especially relevant because you guys revealed an amulet that lets you anoint 4 anointed notables, Does that give you a mastery point as well?
No, you must actually physically allocate a notable on the tree to unlock the mastery that's near it.
Damn. Thought I got you with that one. Does this new system make it easy to expand and change the tree more in the future now as well?
Well, there's a few consequences. It means that we don't have to worry about where we scroll or any niche stats. Like previously, if there's something we wanted to add to the tree, we'd have to pick a place for it. And that means
Oglądam do
builds that
końca.
want that now
Miałem
have to
wyłączyć
that
na nim.
place, which takes away from what they're currently doing. It also gives us these lists we
Royalty
can put
Times
stuff on,
Carol
right?
Emblem.
You know, a plausible content update in the future could be that we've added a thing.
Mogli dać od razu drugi do porównania.
And that's an easy place for us to put stuff that doesn't really disrupt builds and so on.
No,
Because
to
one thing we've learned
koniec.
with Path of Exile is people want options for making their builds different with each league,
Cześć.
but they don't necessarily want everything they've learned to be thrown in the garbage. Right? If the build guides are entirely outdated and it's a fresh start of learning the game again, there's people who are like, I'll skip this one, I'll wait for a build guide next time. And so having everything feel familiar is actually very important. And that's why with the tree update here, it's still really the same tree. We spaced it out, gave it a cosmetic color, put some masteries in there and powered up the non-mastery passives a bit, but stuff's broadly in the same place as it was before. And that means players will be able to come in and do basically the same build as before, they just have a lot more flexibility and the second version of their character might be more powerful.
No dalej nie ma, no.
It looks and feels just from seeing it really different though. Like not like you said in terms of layout, but this seems like a pretty big fundamental change to our character building process now. This mastery system opens up a lot more flexibility over where we go and things like that now too.
That's correct.
We got a lot of questions from chat on this topic. Seems like people are pretty curious about it. How will timeless jewels affect passive tree masteries? So do timeless jewels affect passive masteries at all?
Znowu tak pytanie?
Yeah, my teams say that timeless jewels do not affect passive masteries, just the notable.
Okay. Is this kind of a buff for timeless jewels then? Because previously you might have been losing, if you're say using a Val timeless jewel, losing an effect that was on a notable, but now that effect is on the mastery tree and you can still get it.
Because we've moved the interesting effects to masteries, then yes, the notables are just more punchy in terms of regular stuff, which have now been re-rolled, of course, and yeah, you'll get the ability to allocate the mastery still.
Awesome. A little bit of a buff there, it seems.
It's worth noting as well, with the spreading out of the tree that we've done, we've adjusted radiuses of all the relevant jewels and so on, so that it's obviously not a nerf to those.
Someone's curious about the, is there like a hue or color change on the passive tree overall, or is this just a stylistic stuff for the video?
We have revamped the art of the passive tree and added new effects and textures and so on, because the previous one was getting, you know, older than many of our stuff's children.
Oh my. What's the passive point budget like now? It seems like you need to use a passive point to get the small bonuses as well. Is it going to be worth it? That's kind of summary of the question.
We have buffed the things we took small bonuses off. So previously we allocate a notable and get a certain amount of stuff. You're still getting that much value from the notable. It's just that the main thing it's granting you is now bigger than before. And whether or not the small bonus is worth a point, I mean, I think it's pretty clear from our testing that people want all the small bonuses they can get, like they're like a bloodhound for those things. So yeah, there's more what you can spend your points on that are impactful, and that may mean that you have difficult choices of multiple characters, or could play this character multiple ways, or you'll do the side quests for skill points now, or whatever it is. But no, we haven't increased the budget for passive points.
What's the decision about the in-game tree planner that's been kind of tested / talked about in the past?
We haven't included it yet. It could be done. It's kind of working. It's just kind of bad. Like it needs some work, right? Like, you know, it's.
Jak się pisało do
We have
kogoś.
quality standards, right? We'll get it out there. Here's the thing, right? Like we made it for the Chinese version, and they've got all this cool stuff it integrates with. Like they've got this thing where when you kill Hillock, it goes, right, here are 3 suggested builds you could pick. Do you want to play this one or this one or this one? And it kind of guides you through that. Now, that was mostly because it was a new service for them and players needed to learn how to play. Like our players would not benefit really from being handheld through those builds. And there's a lot of good resources of build guides and so on. So with the tree planner there, when you've selected a build, it gives you the ghost imprint of that build on the tree so that you kind of know where you're going. Now, we wouldn't have that functionality here unless we had some kind of thing. And I've got this dream here. This is me ranting now, where build guides on the website are consolidated in a better place. And when you put a build guide together, you have the ability to interface, but it includes snapshotting the tree at different levels. So you'd say, like, here's the order you allocate the stuff. And then when someone imports your build guide from the forum into their character that they're playing online, it shows the ghost of the tree using the planner there, and all of this kind of fancy stuff. Like, you look at the quest reward window, and it highlights the quest rewards that are relevant to the build guide that you've selected for your character, blah, 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 blah.
Sick.
That would be nice. However, because we have this grand idea of doing that one day, we haven't just turned on.
Odebrano, wyróżnijmy ją wiadomość.
I like the way that the developers who would have to implement this are sending me messages now.
No, stop.
Yeah. That's just me thinking of cool things we could do, which...
To ciekawe, czy właśnie ten zbudowali akt drugi. Mieli to zrobić chyba.
Got it. Yeah, it's like you've painted a picture and we're all like, oh, it's really cool. We think it's cool. We want to put it up in our living room. You're like, I think I can do a much better picture. All right, then. Let's move on to skills. Does Temporal Rift
Skills.
cast on death
Announcement.
your character?
Tu jest announcement.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I was distracted.
Dalej nie ma dostępu do tego.
So as soon as we saw Temporal Rift, it's like cast on death. It rewinds time. Does it work?
Okay, we've got a clarification from the team. It's a reservation effect, so it cannot be triggered.
Yeah, shredded. Awesome. So the new Link supports cause both Link characters to die when one does, and they can be upgraded via passive masteries to allow linking minions. If minions die, does that also kill the linked host?
So to clarify, it doesn't cause both people to die when one does. It causes
Co?
the caster of the link to die when the target dies. So you want to help your friend. If he dies, that screws you over. You can't help him and then kill yourself, right? Like, you know, it's not used for griefing. So I that's 20% of our community that were very excited, especially in hardcore. But no, you're opting into having your character exposed by using links. Anyway, the minion question. Yes, if your minion dies, then you also die. But that's why it's not a default behavior, because otherwise someone's going to misclick and target a minion, and then the minion dies, because they like to die, serving their master and all. So yeah, you have to specifically choose to opt in to being able to target minions, and then it's your responsibility what you click on.
I can't wait until someone accidentally targets a skeleton in hardcore instead of the zombie or whatever they were trying to target. I guess that also prevents the fact that it only is one-way mutual killing. It prevents a situation where one person dying in the party wipes out the entire six-man party due to a chain reaction of death.
Yeah, it'll just be that when someone dies in the party, the support character gets killed as well.
Co 30 sekund.
That's how it works now.
That's much more reasonable, but at the same time, it would have been kind of hilarious to see. Yep. All right. That answers my next question then. Oh my, these are some complex questions here. Okay, I'm just going to skip those.
Okay, they clarify that everyone can link to everyone else for mutual destruction, which can happen. Like, it's basically this ultra blood pact.
Okay, so you can link to someone, they can link back to you, and then you'll have mutual destruction.
Imagine you play group found, and your goal is to link to everyone in a giant grid, so that if one party member dies, the whole party's wiped out and the hardcore run ends.
That's actually hilarious and makes for, I think, a fun, like, challenge mode to play with your friends or something.
That'd be kind of cool, actually.
Everyone links to everyone else. Although, it sounds like they drain mana as well, so that probably would be kind of challenging for a lot of builds, I imagine.
No nie dowiemy się.
But,
O co chodzi?
Right? Like, that makes an interesting stream to do a run through like that.
I like it. Yeah, absolutely. So with the rebalance of curse and aura stacking, but the introduction of powerful but skills like these new link skills.
To jest normalna zapowiedź, czy zapowiedź
in terms of power, what's the end goal there?
Well, the new reality with linked skills, it's far less exponential.
Chyba, że się pojawi jeszcze przed jakoś, nie wiem, w tygodniu.
Having said that,
To
it's still a
dziwne.
big boost in power. Like, if you're playing in a party, one of your party members using link skills will definitely benefit what you're doing. They'll contribute far more than, you know, a fourth character cycloning or whatever's going on with your friend.
Wyróżniliśmy
You
wiadomość.
also get to best choose who benefits from each type of link, right? Like, it's far more interesting than jamming all the auras on and running into the middle. You're specifically saying, I want to protect you and trigger spells from your location and so on. And it's worth noting we have 3 more link skills that are ready to go that we haven't revealed yet because teasers.
Subskrybuję to.
Based on the recent manifestos, people have been calculating the damage over time builds and coming up with lower damage numbers when they factor in the changes to elemental equilibrium or loss, as well as overload. Was this the intention for these builds to effectively be nerfed, or is there more damage now to be picked up elsewhere that hasn't been revealed yet?
You can get additional damage on the passive tree, the masteries, and items.
So where do you guys kind of pitch the math then? I have to imagine you've run the calculations that builds are going to be roughly the same, a bit higher, a bit lower.
Ideally similar to what it was before. One of the problems with damage over time stuff was there was just fewer ways of scaling it compared to some other options. So they've made sure there are actually like new item mods you can specialize in. There are obviously, passives and masteries you can pick. It won't be as high as before if you ignore that stuff. Obviously, you do need to specialize in what your character is doing for it to do that thing well, but at least it means that it's more fair compared to other things.
It kind of raises the question then, especially with gear. When is it appropriate to increase the reliance on gear to balance a build?
We feel that's appropriate when we had some things to the game like Caustic Arrow a very long time ago, where there just weren't support gems that really worked with it. It's just Caustic Arrow, it just does damage, and everyone else has to use support gems. And that's the kind of case there where we see something like that, and to some extent damage over time was a bit like it, where it isn't as supportable as the rest of the game, and that's the case where we feel it can go on gear, so those people have an option to actually invest in doing what they should be doing.
Okay, all right. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out then. I've got a couple questions from chat. Can you explain in more details how the evasion changes will work and how the entropy system will now feel?
So the goal with the evasion changes is that evasion as a core thing is more punchy than before. With regard to entropy, entropy is your friend. Entropy smooths it out so that you don't get two hit, right? Getting two hit is the problem. No one really ever gets one hit, right? They do have enough survivability. The problem is quick successive damage. And so previously,
No nie
before
zmieniło
entropy
się to
existed,
dalej.
you'd unluckily get hit, fair enough, you can deal it, then you die, because the second one comes in. With the new one, entropy guarantees that will be spaced out. And so that helps evasion characters a lot. Whenever we see people...
Aleksander, dodaj dzięki za suba.
It substantially reduces the chance you're going to have the second hit come in to kill you before you get a chance to react to the first and heal yourself. With the evasion changes, though, characters using evasion by actually just putting evasion pieces on will have a lot better time than they previously did. We understand a few characters were stacking dodge to combine with it. This was too powerful, and people said to us, we want Path of Exile's defenses to be sorted out. And we evaluated it, and we saw that the vast majority of players were really struggling to get the defenses they needed. And some players were totally fine with various niche bits and pieces, like, using dodge, stacking with evasion, and having blind at the same time. And so in order to make it so that all the defensive options were good, we had to look at the outliers and sort them out. Because if we kept those working exactly how they did before and increased everything else, we'd have some immortal characters and everyone would have to play that. And so we've tried to improve it for 85% of players, and the few percent that were using things that were slightly above the curve had no major survivability problems before. So yeah, it sucks to describe any form of nerf, but this is intended to be an expansion almost entirely full of buffs, and we do believe that the situation is better for almost everyone than it was in the past.
It's worth noting, I guess, now that acrobatics has changed, block is more of an option for evasion builds too, because there's not that block penalty anymore to contend with. Which
we believe
people will.
Once people try building their characters around the new defensive stuff, they'll have a great time. It's easy to look at how the character
na forum na Facebooku Path of Exile mówiłem o tym, że będzie coś podobnego do Delirium, tylko bardziej mroczne i krwawe. Że będzie na podobnej zasadzie. I tak samo pisałem, że będziemy coś pewnie wypełniać, nie wiem, krwią i tak dalej, i będzie to będziemy coś odpalali, albo nie wiem, będziemy buffowani.
Yeah, I think basically the question is because like it looks awesome, but it's like maybe a bit too slow is what people are noting from the video, which is the same thing I felt when I first saw it as well.
Yeah, they say it starts slow so you can hit it before speeding up when you first cast.
Okay. Seems like it might be more of a boss killer in that regard then, rather than a clearing skill.
Właśnie,
Can you specify what things can get reverted in time? For example, souls from bar skills, combat buffs, skill cooldowns, or is it just
Scourge, Delirium?
It's HP, mana, energy shield, and player position. It is very interesting to consider adding more to that list. There will be people crying at the very thought of that because it has implications to revert other things like charges and souls and so on.
Jest po prostu Delirium 2. Pista mgielna.
That's kind of why we're here.
Chat's calling out ward. I assume it also includes ward, as that's a core defense.
That's a great question.
Other people in goal. Hint, hint. Other people listening in.
Someone adds ward to a function call in the code.
Dalej tu nic nie ma.
Deal with that if it needs dealing with.
It's alright.
And if it doesn't,
Uh,
there'll be a reason.
Cool. On guilds, does the guild hideout map device serve one party at a time or multiple parties somehow?
So you can see your portals and your party's portals. The way it works is if you have a party,
Jakby nie mogli zostawić ten jeden potężny mob,
and if
a
the
drugi
party
szkodliwy.
portals, you'll see your own ones. And you can also promote people in
No w sumie
your
tak,
party.
jeżeli się trafi grając pod
There's been a bunch of work put into that. We've also
pod
got various changes behind the scenes.
pod lighting, a
You're less likely to lose them and
zredukują obrażenia
basically the goal here is that you can
pod
sit
ogień,
here
no
and
to
hide out
okej,
forever,
to dostajemy tylko
aside
buffa,
from
nie?
trading with randoms,
Ale w innym przypadku to będzie
keeping you in
lipa.
your own hideout. Obviously you can't just invest
Ciekawe, czy to
in
można...
hideout.
Nie, można zmienić, tylko że do 3 razy. Tyle, co kojarzę z zapowiedzi, to do 3
Aside from
razy.
trading with randoms, you have to go to their hideout to do that. You can use your guild's hideout as your own personal hideout, practically speaking.
O,
I'm super impressed with the portals working based on parties, so multiple people can use the same map device. I did not expect that at all. Since you brought up the trading thing, though, it really like raises the question once again about whether you guys are still considering cross-instance trading.
no a
At this stage we're not
poziom
considering
trzeci. Na
trading
poziomie
systems or
trzecim
cross-instance
chyba już trzeba
trading.
zaakceptować to, co się zrobi, nie?
Architecture, and I don't think it's worth it.
All right, fair enough. Will there be additional guild slots available now that people will want to join guilds?
It's kind of funny because when we looked into guild slots, the conclusion we have is we will not reduce them at this stage. Now that may seem like a counter argument, but thing is, when you join Path of Exile, it tells you the status of all of your guild members and all of your friends, and various information gets sent around. And when you've got a maxed out guild and a maxed out friends list and all of this kind of stuff, there's a lot of data. Like whichever router that's going through
Zaklinania.
owns the 8 kilobytes of data in that one packet basically, and things get unhappy. When we do simulation of heavily
O,
guilded
zobaczymy na mapie.
friended users all being incredibly active, because of course most users aren't. But when we do the simulation, the realm has poor stability. And so we believe that this will be fine at current settings, but the reason why we kept it and the reason why we're not improving it is because things get exponentially worse, especially given that more people will be in guilds now after these changes. So we're going to obviously try to improve this, like we want bigger guilds and so on. But it's not going to be quite the same as other games where you just make the biggest guild.
10 razy mapę można zmienić, bufując ją na różny sposób.
And we're still allowing hundreds of people in guilds, I believe. What is the
Yeah,
cap?
what is the
200,
cap
300?
now?
I don't know. Whatever it is, it's probably not changing for a little
O
while.
kurna, ale można
Really,
też tak,
it's just that we're very
tak
aware of the
zbufować,
fact
że
that,
będzie
this is the
bardzo
kind of thing that
szkodliwa.
causes problems on launch day.
Lol.
So we'll try to avoid problems on launch day this time around.
To jest poziom pierwszy, czwarty,
Will you be
10.
able to contribute points to the guild leader to get upgrades for hideouts and stash tabs?
Yeah, it's exactly the same system.
Zmieni się w koszmar po zabiciu rzadkiego lub unikalnego wroga.
Previously it had the ability to buy slots and regular stash tabs. Now it has the ability to
Nie
buy
można
items,
ręcznie przemienić się w koszmar, ok? Potwory w koszmarze zadają ci 120% więcej obrażeń. Potwory w koszmarze otrzymują o 45 mniej obrażeń. Gracze w koszmarze tracą 300 punktów życia na sekundę. 300 punktów życia na sekundę. Rzadkie potwory plagi opuszczają się dodatkowe mapy, ok? Rzadkie potwory plagi opuszczają 7 dodatkowych ułożonych talii. O, to jest ciekawe.
Probably not. We still like the idea of you actually going into a central part of Rayclass. I mean, people cynically say it so that we can sell microtransactions.
Czy mi może ktoś powiedzieć, o co w tym chodzi? Nie jest to dostępne, ale kiedy to będzie dostępne? Może na stronie trzeba oglądać.
Can we enter guild hideouts if we play solo
Dobra.
self-found? Are the guild hideouts cross-league?
Scourge zawiera przeróbkę kultowego drzewa umiejętności pasywnych Path of Exile, pomimo tych dużych zmian, że ma być nadal.
We
can come back to that in a second then. These are some more questions from chat. When
There's
will...
a clarification from one of our devs. In a party, the guild map device will show your party leader's portals, but not your own. So if there are party leaders' portals, then you'll see those, but you won't see your own ones if you're in a guild.
Jak mruga. Żukuje nas?
I don't understand.
No ja też nie.
People do.
If it's being well thought out and well tested, it should be fine. And if
Mówcie po polsku.
just let us know.
Zrównoważnić wszystkie pasywne umiejętności z konsol zlikwidowaliśmy ich moc wokół ich podstawowej funkcji, przynieśliśmy wiele niszowych statystyków do nowego systemu i pasywne specjalizacje i umiejętności. Czyli chodzi o to, nie? Kiedy przecież pierwszą umiejętność pasywną na tablet do klastra pojawi się mastery. Aha. Czyli pasywną na tablet do klastra pojawi się mastery. Dzielenie punktu umiejętności do tego mistrzostwa pozwala wybrać z listy zaawansowanych statystyk, które pasują do tematu klastra. Nowy system zarówno czyni drzewo bardziej zrozumiałym, jak i bardziej więcej swobody planowania umiejętności pasywnych. Balansowaliśmy również kilka umiejętności pasywnych lub kluczowych, zmieniliśmy położenie niektórych dodatkowych 6 nowych kluczy dodatkowych drzewka. Czyli rozumiem, że jak co, będziemy mieli dostęp do klastera, to dopiero to będzie aktywne, tak?
Concurrently in their hideout at the same time during regular gameplay. Like, it's going to be one shard unless you're having some crazy meeting, and then there's people everywhere anyway. Plus, imagine 32 players decked out of microtransactions and stuff. It's going to have some memory requirements and affect performance if it's higher than that. And, the same reason we didn't turn microtransactions on in Royale.
Are there any, we're moving into some kind of miscellaneous mixed questions now.
Skille.
So hold on to your hats. Are there any changes coming for Harvest?
Some minor stuff.
Harvest.
Harvest
Harvest mogą wywalić.
in the patch notes because it's not done yet. So we're intending to nerf Blister Lords if we remember by next weekend. And we're combining the Alk and Chaos recipes together. So the ones that will either Alk an item and do an effect or Chaos.
Połączenie jest fajne.
Nice and versatile.
Nice. That's a good change. What's happening with Royale? You mentioned the Twitch rivals, but for the regular Royale running, any plans?
Koszty energii.
Royale was a lot of fun for a lot of people, and that lot of people tailed off quite a lot throughout the league, and then you start to get the matchmaking problem, where you have takes like 50 people to trigger a game.
436 tarczy energetycznej.
But not quite at the same time, so you don't get a game trigger, and then when the game's not triggering, they don't bother coming back because the games aren't triggering, and so you've got enough
Fizyczne, 12
milionów.
milionów.
Everyone like read each other's minds and when to play right now, but they're not in there at exactly the same time. And so it was hard for games to trigger in the latter half of the league. And I mean, I appreciate that this is probably because people would be playing the game and enjoying
Wrażenie
doing
chaosu.
expedition rather than
Połączenie
watching
dusz.
reality
O właśnie o co tu chodzi.
But it does mean that we
Celuje w sojuszniczego gracza, aby zastosować wzmocnienie, które na pewien czas łączyć się z nim. Po połączeniu twoja tarcza energetyczna przechwyci część obrażeń, którą otrzyma. Jeżeli cel zginie, kiedy jest połączenie, to również zginiesz. Ta umiejętność nie może być używana przez totemy pułapki ani minę. Aha, czyli rozumiem, że jak ktoś gra kurwa w 4-teamowym teamie? Ciekawe jak to będzie działać. Chyba, że to na chybił trafił.
The secret boss spawn stuff that should be interesting, and we'll bring it back for special events in the future.
I love Royale, I love playing it, I love casting it, but I did run into the
Czyli
same
to jest
issue
co?
where even
To jest ochronne?
behind it, took like 20 minutes to get games started. So I have to concur
Szanse na
that the idea of
odzyskanie
having
życia.
a specific time so that it's
Blokuję,
everyone's concentrated their
to
focus
jest
on
co?
that time, so that games happen quickly. Seems like the best approach there. A major campaign rebalance that started with Act 1 last expansion, but not mentioned this time. What's happening with that?
Zaklęcie.
So we had too much homework, so we didn't get time to work on that. Basically, the community gave us a lot of bits and pieces to work on, so we worked on those, and we'll continue with the rebalance later. And it's worth noting that basically what we're doing is getting the monsters to a normalized level of challenge and making sure they have good abilities and that kind of stuff. So it isn't meant to be making the game dramatically harder, just making it more consistent in terms of difficulty. And so the intention is to carry on with Acts 2 through 7 when we get time later.
Co?
Chat's getting really cranky and asking questions in the order that they want me to ask.
Planowaliśmy premię za ukończenie zawartości, dzięki czemu...
Guys, calm down. Just wait a second, okay?
No właśnie.
I'll ask it now. People want to know about Ultimatum. Is there any news?
No news at this stage.
There you go, Chad. Yeah.
No, mówię.
Okay. Very good.
You liked that one then.
Destroyed. Will my map device unlocks be available via the guild hideout?
My understanding is that they will be, but I'm going to wait for people to clarify that. The team are wanting me to spoil that we're intending to bring Ultimatum back to core in 3.17, but I don't know if I want to spoil that, right? We maybe leave that one as a surprise.
I mean, yeah, don't spoil that. Don't mention it. Probably best not to mention it. Some people would like to know if the South African servers will be staying because they've been having a great time playing on the test server.
Oh, that's really good to hear. Well, we don't like to turn stuff off arbitrarily, so if it's going well, I'll check with the technical team and have a chat with them. It's kind of sad that the meme dives left us so long, right? Like it's been, the monthly emails about South African servers are finally over, and I just feel like it's the end of an era, right? Like, my 30s was the period of people complaining about South African servers.
No kurwa, no dalej nie działa.
You break your life down in that.
Bex is telling me to behave. Okay, so Reese clarifies that map device crafts you have unlocked can be used at the guild map device, but they are not shared.
All right. Bex has given me the 5 minutes, so let's go quick. Any updates on colorblind support for sockets?
So we have 2 new socket options available. We have small notches, which is smaller than the ones that we demoed in the community post, and we have large patterns. And so you can, by default, you do not see these, because that way, while the non-colorblind users were not complaining about having notches, we decided that we may as well give them, no change if they don't want to change. So by default, no change, and you can turn on small notches for people who just want a hint as to which socket it is, or large patterns.
Nowe wersje ubiera wielu treści końcowych, które pozwalają rzucić wyzwanie twoim najlepszym postaciom z najtrudniejszej zawartością, jaką kiedykolwiek stworzyć. Przedłużyliby ligę na miesiąc dłużej może.
Everyone who sees it says you don't realize that you can't see the notch if there's a link going upwards, and it's just the most common thing, as though we haven't thought of that. But we also all notice that, but it doesn't matter, because if there's no notch going left or right, then the notch has to be going up. So those are, anyway. So that was great, but we have these socket colorblind options available, and as we experiment with further colorblind stuff in the future, we'll put it in those options.
Alright, rapid firing.
Które można namaszczyć do 9 razy. No właśnie, to jest to, co też mówiłem, że 9 razy można namaścić. Mapy BLIK do 3 z każdego rodzaju namaszczenia. Symulak Intellium zostało rozszerzone o dodatkowe, wymagające fale. Nowo nieułożone emblematy można łączyć z ponadczasowym emblematami, aby zwiększyć poziom trudności demonu nadczasowego konfliktu. Delw zostało zbalansowane i oferuje teraz większe wyzwania, większe nagrody i częstsze spotkania z bossami. W końcu to też jest na plus.
Very timely.
People will be playing Scourge in 5 minutes.
Ziggy, please show console some love. I'm not a developer. And ask when will console get bind to move key functionality.
I'll make sure that the console team is aware of that request.
Alright, very good. How does Elemental Overload work with Val skills? That's a good question.
Right, I need my team to answer that one, unfortunately. It's not something I know.
Yeah, whether they're counted as a different skill or not might affect their
Dalej jest nieaktywna.
use with Elemental Overload.
Można zadawać pytania?
Any PoE2 news, just quickly?
We have nothing more to share on Path of Exile 2. We're waiting until we've got a big, impactful pile of stuff. Probably next year is the next time we'll share a big pile of PoE2 stuff, but things are looking real good. Okay,
Awesome.
so Rory clarifies that it does count as a different skill, yes.
Yeah, okay, so it won't gain the damage buff from Elemental Overload then. Worth considering. Oof. Okay, there's like a bunch of questions about, is it a telescope behind you, Chris? What is it?
It's for astrophotography, and sadly,
Awesome.
I've been so busy with Path of Exile this year that I haven't used it once, right? So I'm one of those people that buys a thing, puts it in the background, and then never touches it. So I'm not an astrophotographer, but I will be as soon as things calm down.
Well, maybe you can use it today now that we've gotten some things sorted out. Although, maybe wait until the nighttime, I imagine.
No dalej.
Thank you very much for your time, Chris.
Right, thanks, man. I
Już,
appreciate
koniec.
it. Everyone have a great time in Scourge. It's going to be a good one.
See you all later.
Koniec. Nic nie pokażecie więcej? Ale o co chodzi z tym drugim announcement? Co jest grane? O co tu chodzi? Weźmy tam. Dobra, gildie że butelki łagodzące drogą oglądamy postawione. Dobra, dobra, będzie to dostępne. Ruszenie do Liga Ekspedycji. Ruszenie tego ekspedycji podstawową. Cali Randus. Bardzo dobrze. Ekspedycja zacznie znajdować się od 6 aktu. Istnieje podstawowy 8% szans na tej mapie. Prowadzimy kilka ulepszeń w ekspedycjach, w szczególności zmieniając artefakty ekspedycji, aby nie były już przedmiotem handlu. To oznacza, że są automatycznie podnoszone podczas potyczek. Dobra, nowe. To już mówiłem, to. Aby umożliwić zaklęcie z hełmów lub pasów. Ciekawe. Ale misja, ok. To wszystko wiem. To już ściągliśmy. Jeszcze raz sobie to muszę oglądać. Fajnie, jeśli zapitala w dół. Dobra, idźmy na Queena. Queen.
Wow, this is completely bricked. I'm closing everything. Holy shit, what is this? What is this? Has it closed all of them yet? Oh my god!
Co?
My computer's actually bricked!
Ciekawe, co tam piżama.
Patrzą, co są, a mi się strony nie ładuje. Na drugim monitorze.
Co jest? No strona się nie dowie.
Teraz nie będzie smaku w ogóle.
Co to było? Live stream?
Nie no, serwer strony to serwer strony, no, ale czasem się pierdoli.
To nie działa.
No to zupełnie inny serwer niż ten, na którym stoi gra, come on. A ciekawe jak będzie wyglądał start. I jak ta liga będzie bardzo wpływowa.
O,
Nie Diablo, spokojnie.
widziałem, czytaj.
Powiedz, że jest Anknon, który jest niedostępny. Nie widziałem, słuchaj. Takie kolejki pewnie duże. Szmulek raczej będzie więcej ludzi. Pewnie będzie dużo większe echo w ogóle.
Dobra, da się to oglądać?
W mediach, nie?
Hi, I'm Chris.
O, dobra.
Ultimate V2. Widzisz mnie? Widzę cię. Maciejczuku.
Ty, no ale się nie da wyjść teraz.
Nie działają, jest bad gateway. Gateway is dead.
O, zaraz sobie powiem jeszcze raz.
Chuj, masz tutaj stronę. Nie, zadziałały. Nie trolują, patrz.
O, działa.
Masz
Jeszcze raz.
linka. Powodzenia.
Tak, nie działa, a wejdźmy sobie.
Spokojnie, jeśli macie powiadomienie teraz, powiem, przyjdą później. Dobra. Ile tego jest do czytania?
Wow. Już wleciało to wszystko? Ło. To wiemy. Się pojawiło ciekawego, nowego, nie.
Dobra, nie wiem, ktoś na jakiś dowóz może zrobić w Warszawie jakiegoś specyfików?
To nie działa
Do psa
strona.
przeczytania? Dalej Ctrl F Champion. Nie ma. Champion is not dead. Ja blisko mam.
Ło. Jak zawsze.
Okej, możemy na razie sprawdzić słagucze.
Labirynt to wiem.
Fixed book z Toxic Rainem. Nie ma buchów. Co się kurwa dzieje?
Kursus, o.
Toxic Rain nie ma. Champion Toxic Rain, całe PC.
A w ogóle
Kurwa grało. Na
mam
plecach
pomysł.
musicie, kurwa jeździć.
Awakened Support, Rider, Ster, sobie.
O tak. To czempiony.
O, jest strona żywa. Jak wyjdziemy? Tym, że oni stwierdzili, żeby nie wystawiać. Wejdziemy jeszcze raz na stronę. Dalej jest. Że mieli coś pokazać, ale jednak wycofali. Też tak może być. Dobra. Ja się... Unique Drops. Mortal Core. Delph. Profesji. Craft. Syntezis. Tornados. User interface. Ale jeżeli chodzi o... to jeszcze nie teraz. W późniejszym czasie. Problemy. To... Charakter. Dobra, to jest balans. O labiryncie to wiemy. Atlas Change. Atlas Change. O, tu są mapy. Dobra, jakie mapy mamy? Akurat te regiony, które tutaj są, tylko najczęściej to Waldorest robiłem. To było tyle. Wszystkie te, które ja grałem, Po prostu wywalili. To wiemy, Defaleni Maps, Atlas. Akademia. Co? 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 Nie wierzę w to. Usunęli te mapy. Akademia, Arachin to faktycznie mogli. Arena była prosta, Bazar był prosty, Beach był prosty, Belfry. No to mogliby usunąć. Bramble Valley mogłoby to zostać. Burial Jumpers. Page. Castle Ruins. No nie lubiłem go. Channel. Lubiłem to grać. City Square. Lubiałem. Cold River mogło być. Coloniade. No też. Coral Ruins. Courthouse Covers nie lubiałem. Krater nie lubię. Crystal Ore. No tak. Desert Spring. Całe szczęście. Factory Frozen. Najprostsze mapy usunięte. Iceberg. West Valley. Ivory Temple. Valley. Lava Chamber. Ja. O, tego też mogli. Tego nie lubiłem. Strasznie tego nie lubiłem. Primordial Pool. Rampart. No nie. Rezydencja. Mogłaby zostać. Scriptorm. Faktycznie mogli. Shipyard. Co? Nie, no nie wierzę w to. Ja. Przenosili karty na inne mapy. Dobra, to są te nowe emblematy i tak dalej. A co w Simulacrum? Aha, 10 dodatkowych tych. O fuck. 30 waves. Ja na 20, kurna, ledwo co. Co tu mamy dalej? Learning content. 13 nowych unikatowych kart. 6 nowych unikatowych itemów. Edycja traktora. Wiadomo. Mam nadzieję, że challenge zrobili jakieś kurde normalne. Dobrze, że Paradus to był niepotrzebny. Według mojego odczucia. Tornado Skills. Coś tu jeszcze ciekawego. Co on tam mówi? Nie.
O, Kuba, sadga dla dużej ilości buildów. 118 map zamiast 164. Te mapy zostały wyrzucone. Akademii, Arachnid Tomb, Arena, Bazar, Beach.
A to co przemówiłem przed chwilą.
Bramble Valley. O jak dobrze, kurwa. O kurwa. Bur...
Najszybsze mapy wywalili.
Co oni wyrzucili stąd? Ale proszę o świeczki.
Najszybsze mapy.
Naprawdę? Zajebali Burial Chambersy?
Ja nie wiem, ja będę grał chyba Scourge Poison Arrow. Tak mi się wydaje.
City Square. Kurwa, wszystkie moje ulubione mapy wypierają. Koloniadę. Oni wyjebali wszystkie.
No wszystkie najszybsze mapy.
Naprawdę, wszystkie mapy, które były linearne.
Dokładnie.
Shit. Covesy.
No.
House. Geodę. Iceberga.
Najlepsze
Jungle Valley.
80% zajebistych. Się.
Wulkano. Toksyki zostały, rzeczywiście.
Taka jest prawda.
No, dużo map wyjebali, bez kitu, takich map, które ludzie naprawdę lubili. Port zostawili, no port dalej jest. A w sumie jaki jest port? Kurwa i Toxic Sybersy, no chuj tam. Najstarsze? Właśnie nie, no bo zobacz, Bramble Valley jest nową mapą.
Ale była chujowa.
Bramble
To
Valley
jest
jest
prawda.
nową mapą. Cold River jest nową mapą.
Nie no, kosmos.
Iceberg jest relatywnie nową mapą.
No Iceberg wyszedł ile?
Dziwne,
Parę lat temu. Ale Iceberg był fajny, no.
dziwne, że takie nowe mapy jak Bramble wali. W sensie tam bossy były... Dobrze, że tej mapy już nie będzie, nie? Ja się cieszę, ale... Dziwne. Farma harbów na jak nie powracam. Ja myślę, jako że jest Beyond normalnie uznane, to farmienie... Powiem tak, jeśli chcecie mieć dużo currency, to inwestujcie szybko w sekstanty. Mam nadzieję, że dużo ludzi tego nie słyszało, bo jest was tylko tutaj 500, ale...
Ja mam
sekstanty
restreama.
mogą znowu być bardzo, bardzo drogie, przez to, że będzie... O, a to leży...
Dobra, zobaczymy co tam upina.
Boom! Tornado goes out. Like, why don't you just attack the mobs instead? Can be up to your pre-heals by up to 20 times, reflects 10% of damage taken to enemies. Deals damage every 0.25 seconds. Wait, I see. So 10% every 0.25 seconds. So this would tick 10 times. So literally 2.5 seconds to do full damage. So after a full duration tornado, it then deals. Yeah. So after a full duration tornado, depending on how much increased duration you have, it's doing like double damage of what you put into it overall.
I
I
ta
did it in
szyta.
scientific mode because I was fucking doing scientific calculations. in
Czekam
Mage.
aż będzie patrzył na czata.
Can we go if there was a really hard hitting projectile that was kind of hard to hit and had shitty AoE? What's like a shitty AoE super hard hitting projectile? Right? Super hard hitting. Shitty like, because then it would turn that projectile into like a big AoE thing that lasts for a long time. So if you could just make like some fucking really hot, if it was like a charge up power shot that you could just fire into it, and you just like fucking fire a few big dick like huge single target power shots into it. Okay, it then took all this crazy damage, which it then goes out and automatically does a bunch of AoE and kills a bunch of shit. It could be good. Snipe, yeah, maybe, yeah, that could be, yeah. Apply a buff and leave after images after your recent past.
Będzie czytał czy nie będzie czytał?
Return to the oldest. Teleporting to that location as well as resetting your life mana energy shield. So
Znaczy,
oh
to
wait. So you don't have to press it and then press it again. So you don't have to preemptively be like, okay, I'm gonna like press this, jump down the fucking ramp, kill the thing, and then press it again to come back up. It's like it's always being done, and you can just press it to go back whenever you feel like it. Right? No, you can so you can basically, yeah. So you can be like, oh fuck, I was just got one shot, bang, and you're back at full life, and not almost one shot, right? So it does have a 0.25 second cast time, but it could be like Flame Dash, where I mean, it probably will be like Flame Dash, where you press it, and then you immediately teleport, and then you're stuck for 2.5 seconds. So it'll probably be like, you press it, it's immediate, and then you're at the new location stuck for 2.5, you know. Not a spell. No, Flame Dash, it's the same thing.
guzik. Za szybko to chodzi.
It's got a cast time on it, but like when you press it, you immediately appear where you want to appear. And then you get stun locked for 0.25 seconds or whatever the fuck it is. It'll probably be
Dobra,
like that.
to tam jeszcze piżam gada i kończyć.
Traveler's Bone. Okej. No spoko, no pozamieniali po prostu mapy. Cursed Wars. Cmentarz dalej został, kurwa. Zaniter będzie znowu biegał tam jak pojebany. Okej, to jest ta mawa.
Extreme? To u niego. Czyta, aha, no czyta. Wygląda. Stream. Przestań czytać. Oznacza. O.
Are you sure? It's not ending, dude!
Holy moly. O, dojechałeś do końca.
Let's do it, bro. Dude, I can do this, like, that's gonna be another, like, 4 or 5 hours going through everything.
Dziewięciogodzinny stream, żeby przeczytać pewność.
Dude, you know what? We're gonna make a different stream, please. We're gonna make it a patch note stream, because that stream will easily last for like 8 hours. But, dude, I have an appointment tomorrow morning, dude, and it's already like almost midnight. Mr. Nike, thanks for the prime, man. You finishing reading just in time for league start? Yeah. You're here for another 10 hours? Yeah, but not me.
Kurna.
This is ridiculous, man. I don't think that we ever had patch notes this long.
Nie jest taki. Tak go nie będę czytał.
The question though is, do I make it off stream and make like this TLDR video again? They really patched it? What did they patch? Just CTRL F your build parts. Build parts. 0 results. We don't have to read it. Oh, thank God, dude. I thought I had to read everything here. Nah, man, I have to make a separate stream for patch notes.
To właśnie może tak mu zadam.
For real.
But yeah, boys, I think I need to like get the videos ready for YouTube. But this is actually amazing. Like, I think this is gonna be amazing, especially skill tree wise. The possibilities, the end game content, the grind. I'm
Dobra.
totally up for that again. I really look forward to that.
Co teraz?
But yeah, I'm gonna see us tomorrow, I guess, with some patch notes stream. Dude, I hate those things. Like, seriously. You know, I'm one of these players or one of these content creators. I like playing games. You know, I'm like playing games and not reading patch notes. I don't like it. Obviously,
czyta.
it's like going to dentist. Do you want to go to the dentist? No fucking way, you know? But you still feel better after you're done. So,
Ale nie przeczytał, no.
yeah, I guess I have to go over the patch notes at some point,
Proszę.
but is it priority for me? Oh, fucking no, dude. Let me just play the game. That's what I'm here for.
Troszkę masz być patrzeć. Dajesz.
Reading is for stupid? You said that. I wouldn't say that. But yeah, boys and girls, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching. I'm gonna
No nie
finish my
przeczytał,
coffee
no.
here and get some videos edited. What is the purple armor? Ah, just some shit one alchemy armor, like many other uniques. I'm gonna see us tomorrow again. Peace out.
No nie przeczytał. No nie.
O,
jest. Jest ziomek, który czyta.
Dude, are you some sort of a godlike speedrunner of fucking patch notes, or what's up, dude? Thanks so much for the raid, man. Appreciate it. Welcome in. There are now 118 maps on the Atlas, previously 164.
Nie przeczyta też.
You should get a job in auction house, clear to understand and fast. That's good to hear, because I feel like I'm speaking too fast sometimes. And then make a separate patch list stream another day. Fuck this. You know, I sent a message to Chris Wilson saying that wait, Kikis, I need a thumbnail. I sent a message to Chris Wilson, MB, and I told him that I will never let him forget when he said that patch notes moving forward will be much shorter and smaller, and every patch notes ever since have been like 5 hours long.
Z pewnością.
This one topping where they just went into a library and took half of it with them and then just copy pasted the books into patch notes.
Przeczyta, nie
Thanks,
przeczyta.
Kikis. I'll upload it as soon as the video is downloaded. How far away is the video from being downloaded? 2 minutes. You can upload it real quick then. Why side Path of Exile livestream is not active announcement 2? What do you mean? What? Are you talking about Path of Exile 2? If they had any other announcement about it, they don't have any updates. The following maps have been removed from the Atlas. Okay, I'm not even gonna read
Dobra,
this.
nawet nie sprawdzi.
Augmented just a memory, unique quarters.
Ale jest to
Now,
widoczne?
the match map as a quarters is currently not on the Atlas. I like that. Unlock requirements for Soundless map device options have been reduced relative to the
Yes.
increasing number of maps on the Atlas. Each bonus
cool.
objective you complete now increases the chance of maps to drop 1 tier higher by 1.5%, previously 1%.
Już wszystko wiadomo.
Bonus objective you complete
Holy
increases the
shit.
effective modifiers on
Dobra,
non-unique maps by 1%,
pierdolę.
previously it was each 6.
Dobra, to chodziło o patch note. Dobra, jeszcze raz muszę to oglądać. Bez kitu. Zupełnie. Wszystko wiem.
The day the demons found our world, the innocent were first to die.
I to będzie nowy boss. Dobra. To jest kolejny chyba. Czy to jest... Nie no, ale to kozak się zmienia. Po 15 sekund mamy na to. Napełniamy się krwią, odpalamy i kurwa siekiera. Dobrze, bo to będzie w miarę szybka liga, nie będzie kurwa znowu już zaznaczenia ani nic.
Embrace the power of chaos. Become more than mortal. Face the nightmare.
Tornado zajebiście wygląda. A jednak jest połączenie, można z dwoma mieć połączone. To kurna, to jest liga bardziej na multiplayer. To już wiadomo. Nie no, kozak. Jeżeli chodzi o to, to jest naprawdę kozak, tylko zastanawia mnie jedno, ale w tej lidze będzie raczej grać w teamie, a nie solo. Tak mi się wydaje. Bo jeżeli będą te linki, to będzie się można fajnie buffować. No ale znowu, że jak któryś będzie słaby i będziemy połączeni z nim linkiem, to będziemy padać. They are ravenous. Dobra, to by było na tyle. Z wami żegnam czule, został łapkę w górę. W razie, bajo.